All right, y'all, we're back at it again here with the 2013 Ford Explorer Limited diesel. What are you doing? So this time, it seems like we're gonna need front struts on it. It's been making a little bit of noise here and there in the front end when you're turning the wheel back and forth, and when you hit good bumps, it'll make a little bit of noise. So recently, these had a recall on them for the toe links. Let me get a light here. All right, you see that part there with the shiny nut on it? It's the rear toe link. Basically controls the toe and the alignment of the rear wheels. So those were recalled recently by Ford. And so I had those done under, the recall, free of charge at Ford. It only took them about an hour to do it. However, this tire here, I don't know if you can see this or not. I really need to get a light mount for the camera, but so alright, so I don't know if you can tell this or not, but see that tire? It's cupped real bad. So the tread is just completely gone on the outside of this tire. The tires we're going to need replaced here, probably just going into winter anyways, but that's causing it to need done right now. So this showed up, I would say, shortly after I did the wheel bearings on this. I noticed this. Now this tire came off of the right side. I have it on the left side right now, and I'll explain that in a minute. So that tire came off of this side here. And I can't really tell if it's wearing still or not. I would say that's probably not wearing anymore. I don't know, it's hard to tell. Yeah. It's probably still wearing a little bit. So anyways, what I did was, we were going on a little bit of a trip just after I had the recall done. By a little bit of a trip, I mean it was only about 100 miles each way. And so what I did was, after I had the recall done, what they were supposed to do is replace the toe links and do a rear alignment on the car. So I took the right rear and swapped it with the left rear, since I knew it wasn't wearing. And that way I could see if the right rear was still wearing after the toe link fix and rear alignment. So that's why I did that. Also, to just get a little bit more life out of these tires. I didn't want this one to keep wearing at that rate. We wouldn't have made it very far, I don't think. So since I did that trip, and she's been driving it for about a week, and it looks about like it did when I put it on. So I think we're pretty safe to say the rear alignment fixed it. Now I don't know, they're claiming the toe link wouldn't have had anything to do with it. I think otherwise. But there's also the possibility that when I pulled this rear knuckle off to do the wheel bearing, that it knocked it out of alignment. So, you know, what am I going to do at that point? It was going to need new tires anyway, so good time to do these struts and get new tires and a full wheel alignment done next week. So let's get at it. Let's talk about the tools you're going to need. So the first tool you're going to need, besides, so you need a jack, and then, like I was saying, 2 6-ton jack stands. So the first tool you're going to need is a 19mm socket for the lugs, and I use an impact, or you can use a breaker bar or a long handle ratchet. So then the other tools that I'm going to use is possibly a 15mm socket, 21mm socket, 24mm socket, 24mm for the knuckle bolts, 21 is for the sway bar link. But you know what, I don't think I'm going to use this. I think what you'll have to do is, I'll show you that, but just have all these sockets on hand. 15mm wrench, 10mm 3/8 drive socket with 3/8 drive ratchet, a couple of crescent wrenches in case you don't have a 21mm wrench. I don't have a 21mm wrench, so I'm using a 10-inch crescent or possibly an 8-inch crescent, or adjustable wrench, sorry. And then just a small ball peen hammer. This is like a, I don't know, 20 ounce maybe. And possibly some penetrating oil. But yeah, you don't need a whole lot to do this. It's a relatively simple job. All right, so there's a couple ways to go about this. If you don't have an impact gun to take the lug nuts off, first thing you want to do is get a breaker bar and break these lugs loose just a little bit. Just break them loose before you jack the car up. If you have an impact gun, you can do what I'm going to do and just go ahead and jack it up, put it on stands, and then, zip the lug nuts off with the impact. And you'll see under the front of the car it's a place right there for jack stands. Right behind the front tire. There's this lip on the body. There is no frame, it's a unibody, or whatever you want to call it. But I always want to use way overrated jack stands too. These are 6-ton a piece. I like to use these for just about everything. I don't trust these little tiny jobbies here. 2-ton. I don't trust them for anything. They make good camera stands. Always overkill on your jack stands. Once you lower it down, make sure you're still centered. Make sure you have good contact here. And make sure your jack stand's square. Make sure all four corners are still touching and nothing shifted in the process of lowering it down. Once you get it down, give the car a little shake. Make sure it's still solid. And then what I always do is I touch the jack back off where I was jacking at, just for safety. All right, so this is your strut. What I did was I bought a quick strut, which has the mount, spring, and the strut all in one assembly. So to change this out, we gotta take the strut loose from the knuckle, taking these two bolts here out, pop these ABS lines away. Just pulls right out of there. Get that clear. Ooh, that's not good. That sway bar link is broke. Look at that. So we're gonna need a new one of those too. So then you take the sway bar loose, or sway bar link loose, and then you should be able to just take these 4 nuts off and lower the strut out. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is take these knuckle bolts out. 24mm socket on the nut side. This is a 21mm head on this side, but I don't have a 21mm wrench, so we're just going to use a crescent wrench to hold it. Don't even need to hold it. If you don't have an impact wrench, and honestly I think the first time I had those off, when I did the wheel bearings, I think I had to use a breaker bar anyway. I like to use a, you know, like a 20-inch, half-inch drive ratchet. Works really good on stuff like that. Alright, so now that you have the nuts off there, I don't remember for sure if you need to do this, but anytime I'm working with a spring like this, and I'm going to be taking bolts out that I know are holding stuff in, I always like to retain it. I put a jack right underneath the ball joint there and just brought it up a little bit. I don't remember for sure if I needed to do that to take these bolts out or not, but we'll find out. It's better to be safe than sorry. So then what I'll do is just tap that out. And as you can see, it's knurled a little bit there. And that's what retained it in there. And that did give a little bit as I pulled that out. Alright, so you didn't need to have the jack under there, but it's probably safe to do it anyways. So what's nice about these bolts here is that they have this, I guess, nipple on the end of it there, so you don't mess up the threads when you tap it out. And if you do burred over at all, you can just sand that off there. Alright, so that knuckle should just, yeah, see, it just comes right off there. Since this is broke, I'm not even going to mess with taking it off up here. It's not worth fighting with. Alright, so now you can take your 15mm wrench and take these off. Take these nuts off here. Ratchet wrench would probably be really nice to have right now, but I don't have metric ratchet wrenches. I only have standard right now. I need to get a set. So what you can do is just go ahead and break them loose with your 15mm box end. Once you get them broke loose with your 15mm box end, you can probably go ahead and take a 5/8 ratchet wrench and loosen them all the way off. Make it a little quicker and easier for you. And since they're already loose, you don't have to worry about rounding off the nut. Since I don't know exactly what's going to happen here, I'm going to leave this one on. Alright, so it looks like this dropped down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach down underneath and hold up on it while I take this one the rest of the way off. Alright, should be free now. Let's go down underneath. Alright, so now that we have this side out, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. And since this one had the broken sway bar link, I know I have to replace that. I did check O'Reilly's. They have their house brand in stock. Since it is a Sunday, I'm not going to get it anywhere else. However, I want to get this one all tore apart first. That way I have everything tore apart that I'm going to tear apart before I go to the parts store, because I might run into something else over there. So that's why I wait before I go get parts. Go get some parts for Mommy's car. Would you go get some parts? Yeah. right back. Be a good boy? Yeah, you be a good boy. I'll be right back. You gotta stay. Back. 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 You gotta let me in. You gotta let me in. Hey, he's there for you. You gotta let me in. Come on. Come on. Oh, he's so excited. Oh, he's so excited. Those aren't for you. No. Were you a good boy? Huh? Were you a good boy? Yeah. Yeah. All right, so I'm doing both front struts. It's due for an oil change. And as you'll see, the left front sway bar link was broke, so I just got back from going out and picking that up. The windshield wipers needing replaced too. They're not the greatest, so I got new windshield wipers for it too. Especially starting to come into winter here. So the part numbers on this front struts. These are the Monroe quick struts, 27, 27, 29 for the right side. I wrote that little R on there so I know which one's which. The 27, 27, 30 for the left side. And these are for the 2012 and newer four-wheel drive. And like I said, it's the quick strut, so it has, as you'll see, the complete assembly. I don't have to compress springs or anything like that. I just pop the old ones out, pop the new ones in. Left front sway bar link. K750617. That's O'Reilly's Master Pro. Oil filter, FL500S for a Motorcraft. And then it takes 6 quarts of 5W20. I run the Motorcraft Sin Blend in it. And these are 5-quart jugs. So every couple oil changes, I have to buy a second jug. I don't just buy another quart every time I do an oil change. I don't buy a jug and a quart. I just buy an extra jug, and then when that one's gone, I'll buy 2 jugs for the next oil change, which I think I probably got 2 more oil changes left here. So then wipers, I believe the passenger side, yeah, passenger side's the short one. It's a 22-inch. Driver side, 26-inch. And I typically just always run these Rain-X latitudes. And if that's the case, for the 26-inch, your part number is there. 22-inch, part number is there. And I've always had pretty good luck with those. I've had a set on my pickup for a couple of years, and I just replaced them this year. They were still working good, but one spot for some reason, right in front of my face, wasn't cleaning up, so just replaced them. Alright, so before we put the new strut in, let's get this bottom part of this sway bar link taken out. It's going to be a 21 millimeter again. And now since this is exposed over here, I'm just going to clamp onto this with some vice grips and back that nut off. Otherwise it has the 10 millimeter hex head at the end of the stud. You would do the same thing as the top side. Alright, so that's maybe a little unconventional, but it worked. So to keep the sway bar from rotating, I just put this little clamp on there loosely to the control arm. And we're good now. Break it loose, get that out of there, and suck it come off. Not a whole lot of room to work in there. Alright, here's the new one. Doesn't look like it matters which side's the top and which side's the bottom. Alright, that's a pain in the butt. I could really see one of those new through socket ratchet sets being handy here. All right, so that's a little tricky. You gotta kind of look up from the bottom and line your bolts up, get it up through, and make sure you have your nuts handy. I like to use these and just keep them right around the work area. Yeah, we got them snugged up. and we'll go ahead and put everything together on the bottom here and then get some torque specs. I got the bottom one in. The top one was fighting me a little bit. I don't know. Feels like the CV shaft was catching for some reason, but I mean, if you just wiggle it around a little bit, and she goes right there. So, you know, simple as that. I don't know why it fought me for so long, but kind of took a little bit of a break, walked away, looked up some torque values, and come back and just popped right in. So just one of them things. Tap that back in there. The sway bar link up there. Get that put in and the nut drawn on there. Get these nuts on. Alright, so I don't know if it necessarily calls for Loctite on these, but I will say that I have seen some cases of these nuts backing off. So I just put a little bit of blue thread lock on there. It's the medium strength. A little bit on the bottom. Take your 24 millimeter socket and we're gonna torque these to 180 pound-feet. And there's that. Alright, so now let's tighten up this sway bar link. So it'd be nice to have that 21 millimeter wrench, but yeah, make do. So get your 10 millimeter socket on there, and then use a crescent wrench to this is going to be a real pain in the butt without a wrench. Alright, my 13/16 fits on there pretty decent. Yeah, definitely make sure you have a 21 millimeter wrench, because this is pain in the butt. And I've already busted my knuckles a couple times and I'm getting a little upset. Get that tight. Alright, when you get that snugged up, grab your 21mm socket and your torque wrench. And torque it to 111 foot-pounds. Good. Now make sure you torque the bottom one too. Put your ABS harness back in. Bottom clip here. That's all good to go. Down here. It's always a good idea to inspect everything else while you're working on something. Always look at the brakes. There's plenty of pad life left in there. I have a spare set of brake pads for this just in case. I could change them out while I was in here, but those look good. Brakes still feel good in it, so. All right. I think we're all done on the bottom side here. So let's go up to the top. These top ones get torqued to 41 pound-feet. I'm not very generous with the room up here to do this, so I had to use a shallow socket. All right. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on the oil change on this. It's relatively straightforward. 15mm on the drain plug. Back add off. Have your drain pan underneath of it. Oil filter's right in front of the oil pan. Spin that off. After you get your drain plug put back in, I pull the pan underneath the filter and spin that off. And then fill the new one up with oil. Wipe the flange off up in there. Spin the new filter on, hand tight. When it touches off, another quarter turn. Don't over tighten your drain plug when you put it back in. And we got the drain plug back in. So now we're gonna go ahead and take the oil filter off. And if you don't over tighten these when you do your oil changes, they're easy to get off. There's no sense in over tightening these things. This usually makes a little bit of a mess, so have your rags available. Oh man, it's coming down my arm. Alright, now that you got the filter off and it's done dripping, just wipe this flange off. Get a little wipe. And then you have your new filter filled up with oil, or at least most of the way. Touch a little bit of this fresh oil, wipe it around that gasket. And then, oh jeez, and just spin it on there. Spin it up till it touches off. I made a little bit of a mess of it. Wipe it off. And then once you're touched off there, I do about a quarter turn. So wherever the thumb's at, call that 3 o'clock. I'm gonna turn it down to 6 o'clock. That's all you need. You don't need to crank that thing down on there. Never had it leak doing it that way. It spins right off the next time. So now just clean up all the residual oil from the splashing and the mess you made, and we'll go up top. So typically when I change the oil in this car, I don't even jack the car up. I can fit underneath and you know, drain the oil and change the filter without raising the vehicle any. But since it was already up, I did it that way. So I've already let the vehicle back down on the ground. That way I have easier access up here. And I did forget to tell you when I'm draining, I always pull the cap and the dipstick just to, I don't know if it helps, but it feels like if it's got, you know, open flow up top, then it'll drain faster, so. So you're gonna want your filter. I always give my filters a quick wipe before I use them. All right, so you're gonna want your all right, so you're gonna want your funnel. You wanna give them a quick wipe before you use it. Even a brand new one, that's just a habit I've formed, always give it a quick wipe out. All right, so like I said, 6 quarts, and it looks like I have 2 quarts left in here. So let's get this drained in. If you pour these jugs sideways, it's a lot smoother. And I'll usually stop a quart or half a quart shy and start it up, let the filter fill the rest of the way up, and then shut it off and check it. Let that settle for a second here. Clean some stuff up. About a half quart short there, so let's get a little bit more in there. Remember, it's always easier to add more than to take out too much. It's just above the line there. We'll pull a little bit more in. It took every bit of 6 quarts. right there between the two dots on the cross hatching. Looks good to me. And what I'll typically do is, in about 100 miles, I'll check it again just to make sure nothing goofy is going on. Typically, every time I change the oil in a vehicle, I will I'll wipe down the engine bay, but I'm thinking about having this car detailed here directly, so I'm just going to pass on that for now, and then if I ultimately don't have it done, I'll go ahead and give it a wipe down here when I have some downtime. So before you close the hood, when you're working underneath the hood on something, always check around, make sure you got all your tools. See, like right there, blended right in. Left the socket sit there and it would have closed right on that hinge and probably bent something. So always give it a good once over. See, right there's another one. Didn't put this plug back on. Everything looks good. Let's close it up. All right, so once you get the car back on the ground, you want to go ahead and torque your wheel nuts to manufacturer's suggested torque rating. This vehicle in particular happens to be 100 foot-pound, 100 pound-feet, whatever. So make sure you do that, and then usually after one drive, 20 miles, 50 miles, whatever, I always like to recheck the torque on it. So I think we're going to call that good. We'll get the car in this week for four-wheel alignment and a new set of tires, and hopefully get us through the winter so I don't have to work on it anymore. Start over. All right, we're going to reset the oil change indicator on the dash. Depending on what settings you normally use here, you're going to want to use the steering wheel controls on the left side. We'll hit the left button twice. It brings up this menu. Bring that down to settings, and then vehicle settings. And then vehicle, oil life reset, and then hit the right button, set to 100%. You're going to hold down the OK button, and that is done. So then go back out, and then like that, all done. Alright, shakedown run real good, no weird noises, handled real nice, and no more clunking when you turn the wheel back and forth at low speed. So let's call that fixed. All right, y'all, I got I got the new tires and alignment done. I decided to go with these Coopers. They were somewhat of an economical tire, but they had really good reviews online from everything I read, and I really liked the tread pattern. This is the Cooper CS5 Ultra Touring. They're a good looking tire, and so far I like them better than the Bridgestones we had on here. Had it about 2 weeks now since we had the tires put on, and they're quiet, much quieter than the Bridgestones were, and they've done really well on wet roads. So we'll see how they hold up. They're supposed to be a 70,000 mile warranty tire, so we'll see. But you know, the main thing is to keep them rotated. That's keeping your tires rotated are key to longevity in these things. So this is the third set we've had on this car. The first set, I believe, were Continentals, came from the factory. Second set were the Bridgestones that I put on, Alenza or something like that. I wasn't a huge fan of that tire. Like I said, it was pretty noisy, and it really didn't do all that well in the wet roads like I thought it would. And the Continentals we got about 55,000 miles out of, the factory tire, and then the Bridgestones, it's right about 50,000 miles, but they still had a little bit of life left on them. If it wasn't for the rear tire cupping so bad because of the alignment, probably could have got another 5,000 or so out of them. But so set of 4 of these, which are a 255 50/20 and a 4-wheel alignment, came to right about $780, I believe. So it wasn't too bad. I kind of narrowed it down between these Coopers and a Toyo. Toyo started making a tire for SUVs like this. So I was really interested in the Toyo because I have Toyos on my 6-liter, and these have been a really good tire. You know, I tow with this truck a lot, and I've got about 40,000 miles on these tires right now. And I'd say they're probably about 40% tread. You know, but like I said, the key is to keep them rotated. So hopefully these work out good for us, and I don't have to work on this stupid thing for another little while anyhow.